1, 2, test, test. Hello, everybody. Big face. Hey, there we go. Hello. How are we all? Welcome to Politics, Culture, and Some Other Shit. The podcast. Yeah. Good. We're here. So I'm going to talk this episode. Going to go over the Maccabi Tel Aviv thing in Amsterdam. The so-called pogrom, the way it's been framed in the media. And I'm going to be talking to Seanán O Coistín. He's an interpreter, polyglot, linguist and all that. Worked at the EU, ran for as an MEP and all this sort of stuff. We'll get into that a bit later on. And yeah. Sorry, and we're going to talk about the Good Friday Agreement. The Good Friday Agreement is in the news at the minute a little bit. Well, sort of behind the scenes, the news I follow, maybe not the stuff you do. That's why you're here. So, what's been happening? Well, a few things. So, I don't know if you remember last week, I told you about my Twitter, my social media, basically being algorithmed to death. It's so I told you that what I was going to do was sign up for the monthly paid blue tick thing, and as if by magic, my Twitter account becomes active again. And you could, I'll show you actually. I'll just pull up a little thing here. I'll show you in a second, but basically, I've gone from overnight, like no matter what I posted, it was 1 like, 2 likes, a thing. And that's a problem for me because I need to use Twitter to promote this project. Otherwise, it's not much point. So I've done that, and I'll just scroll down here while you're off screen, but I'll show you something in a second. So this is November the 10th. So I signed up just the other day. So I will show you. There. So there's a post I put up on November the 10th. It's a repost from Sprinter by Benjamin Netanyahu, who's admitted Israel is responsible for pager explosions in Lebanon. And you can see no likes, no retweets, no comments. It says 32 engagements. I don't believe that for a second. If I go on down, these are reposts just. So there's another one of my posts after Sinn Féin, Michelle O'Neill goes to the cenotaph for Remembrance Day, and it backfired. Nobody wanted her there, and Republicans don't want her there, and loyalists and unionists don't want her there. It's just a bad idea, especially in the mouth of an election. And I commented on it. I said, who the fuck is advising Sinn Féin these days, etc. Again, no likes, no nothing. So a few days after this, I'll scroll up to the top, I repost or I start a tweet, and let me see if I can see something just as an example. So there's the 11th, November the 11th, 1 like. I think I did this just a couple of days ago. Let me see if I can see something to back up my point, which I can't seem to find. Where the hell are they? Oh, yes. So that's sorry. It's people replying to me from. So there's one post that I put up after Michael O'Leary had been slagging off the teachers down south, and I got 40 likes and 3 comments. Right? Just made me realise I haven't actually been posting on my own timeline. And yeah, so things like that. Anyway, that's really boring. That's the example. And people are following me. This guy, Danny, I don't know who these people are. Like this one here, 11 people have liked it. These are small numbers, but they are far improved on what I was getting before. Not what I was getting before. Elon Musk bought it, the champion of free speech. Not before him. I was getting good numbers before. But this is what I have to do. So I'm going to try it, see what happens. And I know people are abandoning shit because of Elon Musk and all the rest of it and going to these other platforms. Well, Twitter's the only game in town, really. If the other platforms become more significant, I will happily join them. But until such times, I have no choice. I feel that I have no choice but to persevere on Twitter. So there we are. That's the state of play. I'll try it for a couple of months, see what happens. If it doesn't work out, I'll knock it on the head. So, Maccabi Tel Aviv. What a lovely bunch of lads. Truly, truly monstrous. So, this is the story. Maccabi Tel Aviv played Ajax. I touched upon this in the last week's podcast, but this is just a follow-up since then. Maccabi Tel Aviv playing Ajax of Amsterdam in the Europa League. And they turned up and basically this happened. Check this video out.
After Maccabi Tel Aviv's Champions League match against Ajax Amsterdam concluded, things got ugly. Maccabi hooligans took to the streets of the Dutch capital and began chanting racist slogans directed at Palestine's Gaza and Arabs in general, and ripping off Palestinian flags from homes. The shouting and taunting eventually led to violent clashes with locals, leaving 5 people hospitalized and 62 arrested. But there's more. Dutch publication Die Telegraaf reports that Israel's intelligence agency Mossad had sent agents to accompany the team amidst potential security risks. The Israeli football club is no stranger to controversy. It has an openly racist fan base that regularly targets Arab players, even those on their own team. Since 2009, under Canadian Zionist owner Mitch Golder, the number of players of Arab origin has dropped significantly. Known as Maccabi fanatic,
I just wanted to draw your attention to something that he said there. That Mossad agents attended with the fans. I believe that there was Mossad agents there, but I don't believe that it was for their own security. I believe they were there as agents provocateurs. They were there to start trouble, because that's what they do. That's what they need, and they get a global wave of sympathetic press, and then that temporarily distracts from the genocide that's being carried out. It doesn't really, but this is what they've been doing. This is what they've been getting away with for 70 fucking years.
The team's fans aren't only about football, they are also vocal supporters of PM Benjamin Netanyahu and have gone after anti-government protesters in Israel. In 2015, they displayed an anti-refugee banner at a match, and in March, they attacked someone carrying a Palestinian flag during a fixture in Greece. Following the recent riots in Amsterdam, pressure is increasing for UEFA to impose more drastic measures rather than mere fines on both Maccabi Tel Aviv and its violent and racist fans. Will we finally see a change, or will UEFA continue to allow this extremist behavior?
So there we go. What do I think of that? Now, here is a little thread. I'm going to read this to you myself. Basically just summarising what the dude has said. Since Maccabi Tel Aviv is trending, come and get to know its soccer football fans who ignited the anti-Arab hate and violence in Amsterdam. So this is from a Twitter user called Raphael Shiminov. I'm assuming he's Jewish with that name. Sounds quite Jewish. Here's a report from an Israeli agency who sent observers to every match to find 190 incidents of racist chants, calling 22-23 season the most racist and violent soccer season in Israel's history, including routinely chanting monkey at black players. I'm going to pull this thread is quite long. I'm not going to read it all. Israel's most racist soccer club renames itself after Donald Trump. It was after Trump had declared Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel, the recognized capital. So that's the sort of thing they've been getting up to here. No, I'm not going to do that one. So I want to show you this. So, where are we? Oh, it's going all the way to the top. Stay with me. So the way this was framed in the world's media was that there were pogroms being carried out against Jews in Amsterdam. And as I pointed out on last week's podcast, the only publication in the UK, the mainstream media publication in the UK, surprisingly, that told the truth was actually the Daily Mail. Really was not expecting that. So here, and people are getting fed up with this. Everyone's getting fed up being called an anti-Semite for pointing at a country carrying out a genocide. But we know what it is. We know what's going on here. We don't have to pretend anymore. We know what's going on. It's been going on for a year. And it's a fucking genocide. It's a land grab. It's a white, European, Western colonialist settler land grab. And I do wonder sometimes, do a lot of the people that are excusing these things in the West, in the United Kingdom, people in places in Australia, places in South America, places in the United States, do they excuse these things because their states were founded under exactly the same way? By clearing the land of the indigenous people? And the Palestinians are the indigenous people. I read a report the other day where 50% of Palestinians are genetically descended from the original, the original Jews of Palestine. And something like 80 to 90% of the current Israelis are not. They all come from fucking Poland and Russia and everywhere else. It's mad. It is absolutely fucking mad. Sorry, I just have to type in here. That's Seanán telling me that he's ready to go. So I'll just wrap this little bit up and then we shall proceed. So, it's kind of, I feel like there's an exasperation in trying to deal with the Zionist Israelis and their narratives. And this is where we're kind of coming from. We saw what happened. We know what happened. The media can frame it one way if they like, but this is why it's going to cost them, because people don't trust those institutions anymore. We're done with it. I was very interested to see that a part of the Democratic Democratic Party, looking back at how they lost the election to Donald Trump, the AOC, that nasty little fucker, so-called pretend socialist, was calling for her followers to give her a list of all the podcasts and alternative media sort of spaces that Donald Trump appeared on. I guess in order so that they can boycott them or target them in some way, or put them on some sort of a fucking list for future reference. But they're going after the alternative media spaces, and people like Joe Rogan is specifically. But this suits the CNNs, the MSNBCs, the BBCs, all these, the big newspapers, the big broadcasting channels. It suits them to do that, to blame Joe Rogan for that, because Joe Rogan is kicking their fucking asses. Joe Rogan, you could add all their viewing figures up and combine them, they wouldn't come close to what Joe Rogan's putting out, especially whenever he interviews someone like Donald Trump or Elon Musk. And he did try to get to interview Kamala Harris, but they put that many conditions on the interview that he refused to do it. He had to fly to them, and it could only be 45 minutes or less, or 60 minutes or something. And then they had to have editorial control, and they weren't allowed to ask certain questions and all this. And he told him to go get fucked. And he's absolutely right to do it. Why does he need Kamala fucking Harris? One of the most unpopular politicians that has ever wandered onto the field. In all sincerity. So why would he bother? But they're going after them now. And then this leads me to my point, a part of the narrative that is being spewed across the media. Like, Joe Rogan's the problem. It's not that we didn't offer the people any fucking policies, anything that they could actually vote for. Joe Rogan's the problem. But we can see it now. Everyone can see it now. And that's kind of what's happening here. It's the same thing. It comes from the same think tank. We see what's happening, but then when we see it being presented in a certain way in the media, we're like, hold on a minute. That's not what I saw. That's not the same thing at all. That's not the same thing at all. So this is what's happening. This is where we are. And people are done. The 75-year propaganda campaign that Israel has carried out, not just by itself, is over. It's done. No one believes it. So check this out. This is Catherine Bogan. Now, she's a girl I follow on, I believe it or not, I actually have a TikTok account for this. I have an Instagram account for this page as well, or for this project, and I never use it. So this girl's class. I really like her.
I say this as a Jewish person. What happened in Amsterdam was not a pogrom. It was a around and find out. I'm a Jewish girl. I've spent plenty of time in Europe. I'm 100% confident I can travel safely throughout Europe. You know why? Because I'm not running around town screaming and pulling down residents' flags. I'm not in a huge group of aggressors chanting death to Arabs. Nobody would ever catch me singing a jingle about the dead children of Gaza. And in general, I wouldn't be walking around trying to be a vile, violent nuisance to the locals. I know, I could post up on any public street corner and light my Shabbat candles and wear my Star of David and invite people to say the Mourner's Kaddish and talk to them about being a Jew against genocide, and I would be fine. I would be fine. I would be absolutely safe. I could identify myself as a Jew, as so many people have done, by the way, at pro-Palestine rallies and protests, and either be welcomed or ignored. I'm thinking about that woman who tried to disrupt the protest by wearing the I'm a Jew shirt and everyone just walked around her. That would be the experience. I'm talking a spectrum from confused disinterest to neutrality to being welcomed warmly with open arms. Because that's what happens when you're not a dick. This is some boy who cried wolf shit.
But this is happening all the time. The girl that you referenced there, the woman that you referenced, that turned up at the protest, the pro-Palestine protest in New York, so with a t-shirt, I am a Jew. She would get someone to film her. I covered it in the podcast. And everyone just walked around her. There was a fucking drum circle. There were a load of fucking hippies. They didn't give a shit. So it's the same sort of thing. We know what you're doing. We don't care. We don't care that you're trying to call us all anti-Semites. We don't give a fuck. This guy nails it.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but nobody cares that you're Jewish. Nobody cares. In fact, all of the super Jews on blue tick Twitter that are speaking about pogroms in Amsterdam right now. Bro, if you didn't tell me you was Jewish, I wouldn't have known you was Jewish. I would have just thought you was any Becky or Tom or Glenda. Now that I do know that you're Jewish, I still don't give a fuck. Bro, this is not Russia in the 1800s. Like, fucking relax. There's 15,000 Jews that live in Amsterdam. They seemed fine until some Israeli hooligans showed up, started ripping down Palestine flags, chanting death to Arabs, abusing cab drivers, refusing to observe a moment of silence for the Valencia flood victims, saying shit like there are no schools left in Gaza because there are no children left in Gaza. Turns out, when you spend a year making your national anthem, May Your Village Burn, somebody's going to knock your teeth out. Because unlike the ICC...
Yeah, exactly. I'll just interject there. That's the thing. And this is a part of the way the normal non-genocidal maniac 5/8 are struggling with this. We're being called one thing, but we're sort of going, you're carrying out a fucking genocide. You're carrying out a genocide. And then these motherfuckers turn up in foreign countries. I'm going to Malaga in Spain at the beginning of December for a few days with my wife. A wee city break thing. I'm going on my best behaviour. I'm not going to look at anybody. I'm a guest in someone else's country, and I will go and I will observe whatever the fuck it is they do in Malaga. I've been all around the world. I've been travelling since I was 16. I've been everywhere. I've never been arrested. If I go to an Arab country, I observe there. I've never been to Israel. If I go to Israel, I will observe there. As long as I will observe there, I will never go to Israel. Sorry, that was a mistake. That was a misspeak. I'll never go there. But if it did, I'm certainly not going to go and genocide anybody, because that seems to be very normal for those fuckers. But you get my point. You can't just fucking traipsy into a foreign country, act like a bunch of fucking hooligans, which is exactly what they did, and then they got their fucking mouth broke for doing it. Good. You should. Exactly the same thing would happen if a load of Russians turned up, if a load of Brits turned up, if a load of French turned up, or Italians, or Yanks, or Irish people turned up and started acting like fucking assholes, abusing taxi drivers and getting on like this. The word would get around what's going on, and local people would go, fuck this, I'm going out and going to fucking split a head. Because that's what I would fucking do. The only difference is, if an Italian did it, or a French person did it, or you don't get accused of being anti-Italian or anti-French. The story would get told. And this is the fucking problem. It's a media thing. The way the media lockstep fucking spread that story around the world within minutes of the reports being filed at AP and all this, because that's what happens. And Reuters was actually staggering. Just pogroms, anti-Semitic, Israeli football fans portrayed as the victim. Whatever social media you have, I'm pretty sure you saw that they were not the victim. You know this before I told you. Right? But they still will do it. And this is why they're not being trusted. This is why 100 million people have watched Joe Rogan interview Elon Musk or Donald Trump. By the way, two people who I fucking despise, by the way, just on that. Again, this is another thing that we have to do. We mention these people's names in order to be fucking, to not be cold-shouldered. You have to mention that you don't like them. Which is childish shit. Childish shit. We need to stop that. Back to the dude. Usama. I like him.
Turns out, when you spend a year making your national anthem, May Your Village Burn, somebody's going to knock your teeth out. Because unlike the ICC and the ICJ, the streets have a quicker judicial process. Naftali Bennett is in his feelings because some Israelis got hurt. The same guy who said about Gaza, he who does not mow the grass mows him. Ain't got shit to do with being Jewish. It's because you're supporting a state that is currently in court for genocide. Israel has killed 120,000 Palestinians, and the Zionists on Twitter are upset that some avocados are damaged. How anti-Semitic. Fucking get over yourself. You guys want to be oppressed so bad. Ben Shapiro was over here wriggling out of identifying as a white man.
Do you not agree that you are a white man?
I mean, I think that it depends on the context in which we're discussing it.
So what are you, Ben? Are you not a white guy?
I mean, I'm a man of Jewish ethnicity, which is sometimes grouped with white and sometimes not. I mean, that's the more accurate way to put it. But when
what
we're
else
talking
would you
about
be grouped with?
Silly shit. As I was saying to my friend recently, who's Jewish, anti-Semitism today, whether it's perceived or actual, cannot be distinguished from anti-Israel sentiment because people don't care that you're Jewish. They care that you're supporting a sports team that is representing a country that currently has 400,000 people surrounded in the north of Gaza and has not allowed practically a single calorie to enter, has declared all of them combatants, and has spent this entire week repeatedly attacking a hospital where they already removed the doctors from and detained. Nobody cares that you're Jewish, sweetheart. It's 2024. People are doing Uber shares and eating ass. Nobody gives a fuck. Stop being a genocidal psychopath. Now, I'm sure there's some people who didn't have shit to do with shit got hurt in Amsterdam. I'm sure that happens. That always happens. But it ain't got shit to do with you being Jewish. Again, nobody cares. It's because Israel is committing genocide.
Boom. And that's it right there. That's fucking it right there. This, just while, not connected to the Maccabi Tel Aviv, this is another little post that I saved. One of the worst, so people that are listening to this, which is the most of you, but I'm showing you a video on screen now. One of the worst crimes in history of mankind, euphorically caught in camera. They sent aid trucks to lure out starving and then opened fire with machine guns and tanks while filming it and making fun. And you can see that's what's happened here. So these people are coming out, and the footage is from, I'm assuming, a helicopter, and then eventually you can see it here, they open fire on all the people. You can see the explosions going off there. So they lured them out with the promise of aid, and then just unreal. So there we go. That's kind of, I just want, this is another journalist. I don't know who this guy is. Stu Peters, American fellow.
Everyone else on earth.
Sounds a bit Alex Jonesy, but check this out. Again, talking about the presentation in the media. Same things. Yeah, basically, this is the same thing. And this is what's happening. And you'll start to see this now. We've been seeing it for quite a while, where they can't control the narrative. You got to remember, the internet is why we know all this stuff. This stuff has always happened. This stuff has been going on. But it's the internet that changed the rules. I mean, I could tell you direct, I can do this. And people that are much better at it than me can do better jobs at it and reach bigger audiences. The internet has changed everything. So that's why whenever they decompress after the American election and they go, they won't go, oh, well, maybe we offered the people an unlikable candidate. Maybe we didn't offer the people any policies they could get their teeth into. Maybe we didn't tell them that we'll bring down the price of their fuel, the price of their food. We'll make sure that their children can buy their own homes and they're not getting robbed with rent hikes. We can stop the we can tell. Maybe it wasn't because we didn't tell the people we're going to stop the monopolistic practices of, be it practically every sector of the American economy and the Western. I'm talking about the American election. No, it's because Joe Rogan. That's what they're going to do. They won't do the other thing. They will do that though. It's happening. It's happening right now. So, but this is, so check this out.
Everyone else on earth. We have American reporters. We have American politicians right now going on TV, writing in papers, posting all over X, all about how some kind of Holocaust has taken place in Amsterdam because a bunch of Israeli bullies got fucked up and found out. These guys were criminals, like so many of their people tend to be. They went into somebody else's country and committed acts of violence against people who they thought wouldn't fight back. But guess what? They weren't in the West Bank. They weren't in Gaza. They weren't going up against disarmed Palestinian women and babies or malnourished 6-year-olds throwing rocks at tanks. They were on an even playing field this time. In a street fight, on neutral ground, and they got their asses fucking beat. Everyone else on earth.
So I'm just going to finish with this. This is just on the same story. So this is an article written by Council of State Media. And there's very important information in this. So you need to pay attention because everything's about to get really interesting and this is going to be connected going forward over the next week, in the next year. So check this out. This is called Amsterdam Shows Us Just How Brazenly the Media Rewrites History. We've just witnessed the mainstream media rewriting history in a way that would make George Orwell proud. Well, not proud. I guess he'd probably turn in his grave because this is exactly what he tried to warn us against. In a rare lapse, Sky News told the truth about what took place in Amsterdam, undermining the narrative of anti-Semitic violence against Israeli football fans. Clearly someone got a call, probably from the Sky News editor whose Twitter feed is a dumpster fire of pro-Israel misinformation. Sandy Rashti hangs out with Douglas Murray and shares posts from the likes of David Collier, and she is the woman in charge of Sky's news output. Anyways, excuse me, what happened is Sky shared a clip to Twitter. Now, do you remember this? Be aware of this happening? Right, I'm going to explain it. They shared a clip to Twitter, deleted the clip, posted a message explaining it had not met their expectations, and then deleted their explanation. Sky then uploaded a newly edited clip, which was an Orwellian rewrite of history. It was one of the most blatant propaganda moments I've ever witnessed from a media outlet, and it perfectly illustrates how badly we are lied to. So this is the theme of this piece. We cannot trust the gatekeepers. Right? Who's watching the Watchmen? It's that sort of a dealio. Just think about how many things we might have been lied to about over the years, especially prior to social media. There could be many moments in history that we accept as true that are anything but. This is one of the most terrifying aspects of the mainstream media. They are systematically destroying our ability to establish truth while putting themselves forwards as arbiters of truth. And what the author, when reading that, what I'm thinking about was what I said a moment ago about how the internet has changed the landscape. And we're now seeing, I was just thinking about it recently, actually, today, about what the internet used to be like before big tech just started and governments started to control everything. I was on Facebook earlier, and a site I particularly despise is Facebook. I don't use it much at all. But there was a friend of mine. There's another alternative to Twitter called Blue Sky, which I just found this out the other day. I didn't know. I'd never heard of Blue Sky, but apparently people are migrating to Blue Sky, and one of the reasons that they're not going to Threads, which is the Instagram one, they have a version of Twitter called Threads, is because political speech is basically not allowed on it. So that's no good for people that want to make political posts. So people are migrating to this Blue Sky, and they say, one of my friends, they weren't having the conversation with me; they were having it with each other. I was just reading it, and one of them said, "And we don't like Threads because it's owned by Meta. They don't like Twitter because it's owned by Elon Musk. Who the fuck is Blue Sky? Who owns this? And if they're not owned by big tech, they will be soon. Because when Google come along, or Meta come along, or somebody else comes along and offers them $50 billion for their startup, they're going to sell it. That's how Meta ended up with Instagram and WhatsApp. So the place that's shone a light on the crimes of our governments is the internet. And over the course of the past 20 years, people are becoming more and more wise. It's actually frightening when you think about it, that our governments have been doing this all our lives. It's just that we're finding out about it now. That's the difference. So that's why they're so desperately trying to shut down free speech. Free speech is a myth. It's never existed. The spooks have always been there and always will be there to prevent that. And that's what this is. And now the media was always a part of that machine. But because we know the truth, we can see so clearly through the veil now. And that's what this is illustrating. So, back to the article. We've all seen footage of Israeli football fans vandalising property in Amsterdam, chasing people with metal pipes, tearing down Palestinian flags, singing racist songs, wishing death upon Arabs, triggering mass brawls, and yet as the evidence became undeniable, all the worst agro-Zionists in the media doubled down. Suddenly it was, oh, now everyone's telling us what they think justifies violence towards Jews. No, we didn't make this about Jews. You did. We're talking about football hooligans starting a riot and then pretending they were victims of a pogrom when local hooligans fight back. What is it that Israelis love to say? Don't start a fight you can't win. Don't launch attacks on other people's territory and not expect a response. Well, does the same logic apply here? Of course not, because the rules always favour Israel. This might be the first time in history that a clash between two sets of football hooligans has resulted in the media pretending one side was an innocent victim. I mean, we're really siding with hooligans now. I'm old enough to remember that when media heavily condemned our own football hooligans, but hooliganism is another thing Israel is allowed to get away with. We can hardly be surprised here, given that Israel is allowed to commit genocide. Fair point. Starting a fight and then crying when the other side hits back is a perfect analogy for the history of Israel. And to call this a pogrom is frankly grotesque. It is no better than a trivialization of the Holocaust. The new rule is if one set of football fans attack another, that is a pogrom. But we know that Maccabi Tel Aviv fans attacked Ajax fans and the local residents first. Does that mean Maccabi Tel Aviv's fans did a pogrom? So you see how stupid this sounds? And that's another thing that's very dangerous here. I've already seen on social media now something that I haven't seen in years, which is people questioning the Holocaust. The questioning the 6 million number, that 6 million number. I've seen that a couple of times now, since this past week. Not specifically because of this, but I've seen one since this. So it's all going to backfire. People are done. People are fucking done. And we're done. And we're done with their governments that are gaslighting us and calling us. It's that gaslighting. It's that thing where the phrase gaslighting comes from a movie. There was an old movie like in the 1930s called Gaslight. And it was this woman was driven insane by the lies of her husband. She thought she was going mad. Because he was convincing her that she wasn't saying what she was saying, which was him philandering and being a prick. And that's what's going on. That's why gaslighting is such an appropriate phrase. No, you're not saying what you're saying. You're not saying. Every single day of the week, I see a dead child, a different dead children on my Twitter feed. I don't think I've ever seen a dead child in my life. I don't like that stuff. If I see that stuff, I instinctively scroll past. I don't. When there were beheading videos were going around years ago, I never saw one of them. I never sought one of them out. I can't watch that. And even though I try to avoid it, I can't. There's that many. But you're not seeing what you're seeing. This is anti-Semitism. If you disagree with me, well, that stuff doesn't work anymore. Because there's only so much of it you can take. Even the people that were maybe sitting on the fence a little bit, there's no fence left to sit on. As I said, get off the fence or splinters are in your ass. Back to the article. One massive elephant. Now we're looking into the future now. Pay attention. This is important. One massive elephant in the room is that Mossad sent its agents to the football game just in case. In quote marks. This was literally the justification in the Jerusalem Post, and there's the headline from the Jerusalem Post. Sorry, but what the hell were Mossad agents doing at a football game? It is not their job to police Amsterdam. That's the job of the local police. And this is me now saying this. This is suspicious as fuck. I said it earlier on, they're agents provocateurs. They were not there to do anything other than start trouble. This was deliberate. I'm calling this out. I'm calling it out right now. This is an op. It was an op from the start. I'm not saying that these fans weren't capable of doing this by themselves. I think clearly, as demonstrated, as illustrated on this podcast and on others, they are. But I'm calling this out as an op. Imagine MI6 saying it's attending a Champions League match in Madrid because it can't trust the local police to keep British fans safe. Then a riot breaks out and our politicians immediately politicise it. Then the media is caught lying about what happened. I think everyone would ask what the hell British agents were doing there in the first place and why was there a cover-up. It wouldn't take a genius to figure out there was more violence than meets the eye. Sorry, more to the violence than meets the eye. Exactly the point. This is suspicious, and as soon as and this is the problem now that Israel has. As soon as Israel's mentioned, everyone's just going to automatically assume they're telling lies, and you're wise to do it. It's the wise thing to do. You should question it, but just because Israel's involved, because they've shown themselves to be nothing but unrepentant fucking liars at best. Everything they say turns out to be a lie. Everything. And by the way, I'm not exaggerating. I don't mean most things. I mean literally everything. It's unfucking real. It's staggering. As soon as they open their mouth, a fucking lie comes out. We saw the Alexei Seal thing. They lie, and then they lie. That bit he does. It's unbelievable. So the fact that Israel said it, you have to question it. If you want to keep your sanity and not go mad by the way of gaslight. Back to the article. We know, for example, that Israeli fans, probably Mossad agents, were marching up and down trains looking for a fight, because this is one of the few truths the media has bothered to report. It's just that the media very quickly pivoted away from the truth in a way that should concern everyone, right? Now, we're getting to this. This is important. Stay with me. If not for social media, most people would have little idea of what really took place in Amsterdam. Similarly, most people would have little idea what is really taking place in Gaza. Everyone knows journalists and politicians lie to us, and it's only through alternative media sources that we have a chance of finding the truth. So, of course, they want to censor us. That's the meat and the potatoes of it all. We're being told that we're being, you're sowing disinformation on social media. Well, I'm going to quote, I think this is a Jimmy Dore quote. We all know that the people that lie the most are politicians. Second is the media. And the third, and a distant third, is some rando on Twitter. Do you get the point of that? So this is where we are. This is the censorship industrial complex that we're now involved in. All the fact checkers that have risen up out of nowhere, this new industry. That's what that is. That's the censorship industrial complex. And they want to censor us because we're finding out the truth from citizen journalists. What is a journalist? All you have to do is stick your head out the window and report back what you see, which is what these people are doing. And we're finding out from them on platforms like Twitter what's actually happening. And when we turn to our trusted sources with millions of pounds and dollars and euros worth of equipment and fancy TV studios and highly paid anchors, we're being goddamn lied to. But and we're supposed to go get in-depth breakdowns and discussions from some fucking wanker in 2 minutes in a TV studio breaking down a complex story. But you can go on to any podcast and sit for 2 hours and talk about it uninterrupted without some prick interrupting you every fucking 30 seconds. If you start to even sniff around or even get close to the truth. But major figures can go on something like a Joe Rogan podcast and talk for 10 minutes without hearing any other voice on a subject. Right, this is it now. Ominously, Israel, pay attention, has warned of a series of planned attacks at large events across the UK and Europe. Following the Amsterdam clashes, we're expected to believe it's just a coincidence that Israel was the first country to figure out they are coming. Given the Mossad presence at the riots in Amsterdam, I think we can figure out what's going on here. There's going to be a series of false flags. Israel is going to provoke trouble, probably at sporting events, and when there's an inevitable reaction, it will be used as an excuse to ban pro-Palestinian protests and silence criticism of Israel. We've already seen protest bans in Amsterdam, but the locals have so far defied them. So do you hear what the author's saying there? Israel has warned of a series of planned attacks at large events across the UK and Europe, and there's the link to the article. She'll just open that up. There it is there, Daily Express. Right? So what they're saying is there's going to be these planned attacks against Jews in across Europe. They're false flags. These are going to be false flags. Whatever these are, they're going to be false flags. So now we're going to find out the truth on social media before it gets on to Sky News and the BBC, and then they're going to spin the story for a fucking week while we run it around our heads and go, what am I seeing here? When I go to Twitter and I see this, and when I go to Sky, I hear of anti-Semitic mobs. Well, don't believe Sky. Don't go there. Cancel your fucking license. I did. It's easy. We're going to need an awful lot of defiance because we will soon be told it is necessary to introduce stronger anti-Semitism laws to prevent imaginary pogroms. Suddenly, everyone who's speaking out about the extermination of civilians in northern Gaza and the escalation in Lebanon are going to find they are guilty of hate crimes. We've been heading in this direction for some time, and we're reaching our inevitable destination. Even if the violence in the Middle East is stopped tomorrow, there would be a need to censor us, because the call for prosecutions at the ICC will only get louder as more evidence emerges. Censorship is self-preservation, and we're seeing the strategy for introducing censorship taking place before our eyes. It's vitally important we call this out, because the louder we are, the more we undermine their strategy. If their strategy fools no one, it fails. And people can only be fooled if those who see what it is taking place are silent. Go to protests. Don't sit back and don't go to not do a thing. Do a thing. Go to a protest. If you need to know how to join the Irish Palestinian Solidarity Committee, reach out to me. I will introduce you and get you involved. So, there we go. Very serious, isn't it? And we're going to see this. Keep that in mind going forward now. Remember that whenever something else happens that involves some anti-Semitic pogrom mob, And you'll see one of the things that I've noticed over the years is the same use of language, because the thing goes out. These handlers, these in America it's APAC, across the world you've other lobbying organisations, all Israeli organisations. The words go out, and the same words get dropped into different reports. Pogroms, anti-Semitic. They'll come up with new words for a thing, but they'll all repeat the same word, which automatically is fucking suspicious. That 20 different journalists in 20 different locations can all write a report using the same language. What they've done is they've re-edited a press release. So be careful. So there we go. So I'm going to introduce Seanán O Coistín in a second. I interviewed him last night, and I'm going to edit this all together and upload this as a podcast. Don't forget, everybody, I haven't mentioned it, available on Patreon for £1 a month. It's only one tier. It helps me keep the lights on here at Super 8 Ecotronic and pay the few little outgoings that I have for the podcast. And yeah, that's us. And I think I'll talk to you next week. Follow me on Twitter, where thankfully I'm getting a little bit more traction, so I'm going to be able to post this. I'm going to be able to edit these videos and stick them up on Twitter as little snippets and little bits and pieces if I have the time to do that, and all that sort of stuff, because I know it's worth my while to do that now, because when I did it in the past, nothing happened, and it takes a bit of time to do all that. So now I know I suspect, I hope, fingers crossed, that it's going to be worth my while to put in that extra little bit of time. So there we go. Okay, so let's introduce our guest. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. And we're going to introduce you to our guest, Seanán O Coistín. We have been threatening to have this conversation a couple of times over the past few years. We know each other, Twitter friends, I guess we could call it that. So just to give you a little bit of a background, Seanán is 44 years of age, hails from Coolock, in Northern County Kildare, University of Limerick, where he read history and politics, graduated 2004, where he made history as the youngest ever Irish MEP candidate when he ran in the European elections, just 10 days after finishing his politics degree in the University of Limerick. That's ballsy. In January 2005, he moved to Belfast to participate in the graduate management programme, running Amelia Street in the centre of Belfast, and during this time, he lived in Twinburg. As part of the programme, he had to do a work placement. Seanán ended up in the Newry Chamber of Commerce, where he worked as an event organiser, helping to run business events in the Newry area. Newry and Dundalk Chambers of Commerce also had a joint programme to promote the area between the towns, an area I know well. Later, when the economy crashed in 2008 to 2013, Seanán had to emigrate, and he moved to Luxembourg to work in various European Union institutions, including European Parliament, and as a press officer for Eurostat, the statistics agency of the European Commission. He returned to Ireland in 2022, lives and works in Dublin. He's a translator and a publisher, speaks 6 languages: Irish, English, French, German, Spanish, and Portuguese. And he's going to join us now, and we're going to have a great conversation about the Belfast Agreement, but not the Good Friday Agreement, okay?
God, no. It's the Belfast Agreement. Can I, first of all, thank you very much for letting me on, Andy. And I like your irreverent style and the things you cover. So it's good to actually finally get a chance to have a good old yarn together and discuss things from different perspectives and different locations.
Yeah.
I just want to say, first, my name, I'll just help you with the couple of pronunciations. I'm the only person in the world with my name. There's 8 billion people on this planet, and I'm the only person with this name, Seanán O Coistín.
Seanán.
The English form, Seanán.
Sorry, go on ahead.
Yeah. No, you are right that the English form of my first name is Seanán, and I get called both.
Yeah.
Seanán and Seanán. And what's interesting is, well, maybe it's not so interesting, but I like to say it, particularly for the northern audience. In the south of Ireland, they pronounce it with a strong emphasis with the "aw," right? So they say Seanán.
Seanán.
In the north, you don't pronounce the fada so much. So Ulster Irish speakers would say Shannon.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what the Irish name for the DUP MP Jim Shannon is, it would be Seamus O'Shannon, which is my name. So Jim Shannon Jim Shannon's family name is my first name in
Brilliant.
an Ulster accent.
Oh, very
Yeah.
good. That's brilliant. I love that.
He'd probably never use that name, but his name would be Seamus O'Shannon.
No, he would
Seamus
definitely. No,
O'Shannon.
he wouldn't even acknowledge that there was any sort of
Yeah.
an Irish connection there at all. But he'd be more.
And you mentioned as well where I'm from. I just want to correct it because the pronunciation is one of these funny towns that when the English arrived, sorry, not a funny town, but it has a funny name. When the English arrived and they didn't understand what Irish people were saying, there was a town, a little village called Kilcucka, which means the Church of Cucka.
Yeah.
There was a woman who set up a church. She was the sister of St. Kevin and Glendalough and Wicklow. She was a seamstress and stuff. So she was Cucka. She established a little church about 1,500 years ago. The Irish people were saying Kilcucka. The English came along and wrote it down and heard Kilcock. And it sounds a bit rude.
I you know what? I read it wrong. I think I said Killock.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even see there was. I didn't. So I just seen two O's there. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's in North County Kildare, the very north of County Kildare. That's where I grew up, and it's just to the west of Dublin.
So here, so tell me this. You speak. You mean polyglot is to call you a polyglot is doesn't do it justice. I think. I mean, you speak 6 languages.
Yeah, not all entirely fluently. My three strong languages are Irish, English, and French. Those I'm fluent in. Irish is my favorite language because I went to a Gael school. My dad is from the Gaeltacht in Waterford. I'm not the biggest fan of the English language, but sure, look, I have to use it.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable in this part of the world.
It's pretty much.
And then French as well. And then I lived abroad. I was in Germany. I lived in Portugal for a while. I was in South America for 3 months, and I just picked up languages. So I can certainly hold my own in the other 3 languages, German, Portuguese, and Spanish, but I wouldn't be as strong. But I can definitely keep talking and understand quite a lot.
Very good.
So I would always say I speak 6 languages.
That's brilliant.
I have a passion for languages.
That's brilliant because for someone like me who passionately wants to speak, I go to Irish classes on a Thursday night here, and I've been just struggling. I do think it's well within my ability to do it. It's just that when you don't have the opportunity to use it, it sort of you go through the. I'm sure who am I talking to? But here, listen. Let's get to it. The Belfast Agreement. And when I was talking to you just before we recorded, you had a very interesting perspective that I don't think I've heard it before. So do you want to give us a breakdown?
You might have actually heard it before. You might have seen some people writing about it or commenting on it. And so I'll give a bit more information for yourself and the audience. So I was 17 and a half when the Belfast Agreement was signed in April 1998. And if I had been 18, I would have voted against it. And it's not because I was against the peace agreement. It's because I didn't believe the propaganda that was being sent out that this was a good agreement that will allow somehow Irish unity to happen. And when I was like, show me the details here, people. Like, I want to see the details. Where's the date and the process and the plan for a British withdrawal? Because there's nothing like that in the Belfast Agreement. And there's a couple of different things. I say that there's 3 strands to the Belfast Agreement, right? One was to have a peace agreement, stop the violence. That's excellent. I think everybody wants that. Everybody likes that. Everybody supports that. The second thing was to make Northern Ireland more equitable. You'll have power sharing, you'll have equality, you'll have democracy. I think people like that. They support that. That's fine. But then the third thing was, people say, okay, the other reason why the Belfast Agreement is good, it's important, and we have to always defend the Belfast Agreement is because it's going to allow us to have unity. But does it? Like, show me the details here, people. Because, for example, right, where was the last place that the UK withdrew from?
Hong Kong.
Can you name? Yeah, exactly. That was in the middle of the end of June, start of July, 1997.
Yeah.
So it was only a few months before the Belfast Agreement. Tony Blair and himself, now the King of England, Prince Charles, they went over to Hong Kong. The British flag went down. The Chinese flag went up. Half an hour later, the royals and the Prime Minister were on their boat leaving Hong Kong harbour. But here's the thing, right? The Chinese and the UK government, they began negotiations in 1984 for when that withdrawal will happen. It's now 26 and a half years later, twice as long. And the British government still hasn't come up with information about how and when they're going to withdraw. And this is what I think is a big trap for anybody who really likes the Belfast Agreement or says, we have to support it because this is our way, we're going to get a border poll. It's like, well, really? So have they sat down with the Irish government and started ironing out all the details, like of when they're going to withdraw, how they're going to withdraw, how long it'll take, where is the ceremony? Is it going to be at Stormont? Is it going to be in Dublin? Is it going to be, I don't know, at the beach in Carrickfergus? Like, where does the Irish flag go up and the British flag go down? You know, let's have those details.
Yeah.
And though the time, and other people have said this, Mary Lou McDonald has said it recently, and other people have said it, like, the UK government has had like a whole generation, 26 years and a half, to start telling us about when this is going to happen. So I just don't believe that the Belfast Agreement is actually the vehicle that's going to bring about Irish unity.
So if it's not the Belfast, and I totally take on board all the points that you've just made, they're absolutely 100% valid. And we know it is open-ended because it's down to the Secretary of State and this sort of thing. It's not his.
And just to jump in there, Andy, that's a dictatorship. It's not like a Saddam Hussein or Augusto Pinochet dictatorship. But why is it, if there's about 7 million people living in Ireland, from Kerry up to Derry, from Galway over to Dublin, and the vast majority of those people, including you and me, we would like to see an all-Ireland republic.
Yeah.
But nobody, literally nobody in Ireland can make this happen.
It
The president of Ireland can do it.
completely is a dictatorship. I've said this all my time on this podcast. I've never had a meaningful vote in my life.
Yeah.
You know, because everything I do has to go through a British filter. MLAs here can decide to do something, but only if British MPs let them.
Exactly. But why is it that if all of us, well, maybe most of us in Ireland would like to see this happening, we can do sweet shack all about it.
Yeah.
Like, the president can't do it, the Taoiseach can't do it, the First Minister in Northern Ireland can do it, the Count Corla can't do it, the Chief Executive or the Chief Justice in the Supreme Court of Ireland. Nobody like that can do anything about this. The Attorney General. Nobody in Ireland can actually allow this to happen.
Yeah.
It's all in the hands of one person who doesn't even live in Ireland, isn't Irish, and they get to decide. You know, they might wake up on a Tuesday morning going, actually, do you know what? It might be a bit of crack now if we'd have a referendum in Ireland, and sure, we'll see, will they be interested in uniting up somehow?
Yeah.
Like, that is actually a dictatorship. And that's what I don't like about this. That the Belfast Agreement, if you agree with this and you think it's the bee's knees and you think this is how unity will happen, you have given away all your power, and it's all invested in one person who doesn't even live in Ireland, isn't from Ireland, has no interest in Ireland really, and they change every year and a half by the looks of it. And it's completely up to them. And nobody in Ireland, even if we're all begging and screaming and trying to offer blowjobs or something, like, nobody in Ireland can make this happen.
That might be what we need to do.
we need to take off the rose-tinted glasses and actually see it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's a dictatorship. It's not a Saddam Hussein dictatorship. It's not a Augusto Pinochet or Adolf Hitler style dictatorship. But it's basically the British government decides it's us who gets this. You're not doing this.
Yeah.
Only us.
Yes.
And
so, do you think? I mean, because we were the first colony of the British Empire, is there some sort of a romantic attachment in the establishment psyche that this is the last bit? That maybe if we.
I don't know. I'm of two minds about this. I would say probably, and like, I don't know that much about England and Britain, to be honest.
Okay.
But I would say probably they don't care about Ireland. They certainly don't know much about Ireland, and it's not going to be a big bother per se if part of the UK, which is located in Ireland, no longer forms part of the UK. But I would say that's the mainstream part, but there probably still are ultra unionists in it's like the civil service and the military, maybe some business interests, and they're like, no, this is our part, this is our country, we're holding on to this, and there's strategic reasons to do this. You know, it's hard to know, but generally most states in the world, they don't like to give away land, and this is what it's basically about. It's not about like Brexit wasn't really a big trauma because they didn't break up the UK or anything like that. But the Belfast Agreement, if you were to go for Irish unification, it means part of the UK doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think it is interesting, but I'm still very dubious about it, that the British government in 1998, Tony Blair said, we accept that a part of the UK can leave if not only the people and the territory can leave if that's what they wish, but like there's no international agreement for like the Shetland Islands to become part of Norway. There's no international agreement that like the Isle of Wight or somewhere like that can become part of France.
Yeah.
But there is an international agreement, the Belfast Agreement, that part of the UK that's located in Ireland, it can leave the UK and the people in the territory can leave the UK. But in general, states don't like to give away land.
So so let me I'll just frame that for our audience to so for a border pull to be triggered, there has to be a clear indication that a majority of people want it, and it has to be an agreement, obviously, with the Secretary of State and via the British government. So even if there's a majority of people want it, which there would be north and south, it's still at the behest of the British government to determine if that can happen. So therefore, democracy, although it gets sold, and it is being sold as this great, populist coming together of the people, it's actually a dictatorship.
It is. Like a British minister, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, could like stick their finger in their mouth to see is their finger wet, and then put it up and go, which way is this wind blowing? There's no information, and maybe that's a strategic reason, because if there was, it could be very difficult if there was specific numbers and dates and processes that would restrict everything, and maybe it's in everybody's interest. But I actually think the fact that it's so vague and so open to being at the whim of just one or two people in the British government, it's nonsense. And actually, if you listen to the unionists, and it's nice to listen to them because the unionist voice is important. Alex Kane, he was on another podcast kind of similar to this, and he said the wording in the Belfast Agreement is flim-flam. And if you look up a thesaurus or dictionary and look up what is the meaning of flim-flam, it's like to hoodwink, nonsense, not quite gobbledygook, but it's just basically kind of plumos, as we say in Irish. It's words that you say to kind of jolly people along, but there's no real significance to them. So he said David Trimble, when he was the leader of the Ulster Unionist Party, he would not have signed the Belfast Agreement if there had been more precise or concrete details about Irish unity.
Yes.
So they had to put in flim-flam enough to get nationalists to go, yeah, we like that, but not too clear or definite or concrete that the unionists would go, no way are we touching that. We're not signing that. So I think it's flim-flam.
Yeah.
That's what Alex Kane said. He was in the DUP. He supports that. And he admits, like, this is basically fluffy words that people don't have to really talk about. It's enough to keep ye happy, but it actually means nothing.
So what about this? The British government betray unionism constantly, always have done, every opportunity. It's just whenever they don't need them anymore, they just whatever. We've seen it over Brexit. We've seen it from the formation of the state and multiple occasions over the century. If the British government want the North gone, they will betray the unionists. What about that
I would say that's true, and it's already kind of happened 2 or 3 times. They did it with the Anglo-Irish Agreement, like it was done secretly with Garret Fitzgerald, and the unionists went berserk. They weren't sold out; they were just a little bit betrayed. Because I'd always say that the unionists have been let down by the UK government, and that's clear. They have been let down, but they haven't been entirely betrayed or sold out. And unionists have sometimes got too scared for small changes that kind of were harmless, really. They haven't lost their place in the UK. They're still in the UK. And sometimes they say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, because then we're being sold out, we're being betrayed. No, the UK has done something that you didn't agree with, but you're still in Northern Ireland, you're still in the UK. But there might come a day at some point when the British government just goes, look, we're finished. We don't want this. It's a pain in the arse. It's a waste for us. It's just it's too much hassle. So we actually want the end of this, and we're happy for a piece of our territory to no longer be under our control. And therefore, the people who live on that territory are also going to have to be accommodated somewhere else. But I just think the unionists, up until the whole Brexit thing, the unionists had a victory with the Belfast Agreement. Up until the European Commission and Leo Varadkar was the Taoiseach, the unionists had basically everything that they wanted.
Not to listen to him, you wouldn't have thought so.
I know, but they would no. But there was a scare, like people who got upset about prisoners being released and power sharing and stuff. But actually, the wiser people said, "Look, the war is over. The IRA have said they're finished, and the INLA, they've given up the weapons. They've supported the police. They've now become ministers of Her Majesty. They're administrating British rule in the UK, in this part that's called Northern Ireland. They've accepted partition. They've accepted the unionist veto on partition. And why unionists ever complained about the Belfast Agreement, I do not understand. It's only when Brexit happened, and thankfully the European Commission said, "You're no way are we going to let you do anything like putting a border on Ireland." That's when kind of a little chink was put into the unionist armour that said, now things are changing around a little bit. But up until 2017 or 2016, perhaps, the Belfast Agreement was very much a unionist victory, and nationalists got a few little things, but they didn't get proper, big kind of achievements.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like to hear that. A lot of people don't want to say that. But if you take off the rose-tinted glasses, if you take away the emotions and look at the text and look at the history, what changed? Like South Armagh and Derry and Fermanagh were not given away in 1998. The border stayed where it was. It was made invisible, but it's still there. And the fact that Brexit happened and then suddenly people were thinking, hold on a second, there's going to be a border here. It just proved that border was always there, even though it was invisible.
So would you say then that the promise of peace, which was obviously really, really important, the promise of peace was the hook that everybody hung their hats on, and therefore the flim-flam was able to be sort of squinted at and not studied properly, seen in the dark?
Yeah, definitely. And listen, don't get me wrong, it is super that peace has happened. But I have to also admit, let's take off the rose tinted. It's up until a few years ago, it was a very awkward peace. There was still killings going on. The provos were still killing people up until I think about 2015. Nobody really wants to talk about that, but it was going on. The loyalists and unionists were killing people as well. So we talk about peace, but up until about 2015, 2016, it was kind of an awkward, yes, we have peace, but there's still stuff happening. So no, the peace thing is good. And you can see kind of the psychological and emotional development that happened, that people who didn't grow up with, British soldiers and bombs and shootings and killings and tension because of that, they could kind of just get on with normal living that happens in other countries where there's peace, and people are a bit more open. And the thing that happens, and you see this at the moment going on at Ukraine, you see it with Gaza, you see it in places in Africa, in other parts of Asia, like in Afghanistan and Pakistan. When there's a conflict, people go into binary mode. It's like, they're against me, so therefore I'm against them, and I don't like anything that they have, and I'm not agreeing to anything that they're doing. So therefore, everything becomes one or the other, and it's my side or your side, and that's it. Whereas actually life is not always that simple, thankfully, and there's often a much more overlapped and intermingled existence. And thankfully, like a lot of people, not a huge amount, but there's still a significant number of unionists are now kind of reclaiming their Irish identity. And I'll give thumbs up to the likes of Doug Beattie, who will always say, I'm a proud Irishman, I'm British as well. And he's very happy to say he's Irish. And I liked what he did at the Ulster Unionist Party conference when he brought in a troupe of Irish dancers, just for a little bit of entertainment. But what he was kind of trying to prove was, listen, there's nothing wrong for unionists to have a bit of Irish identity and have a bit of fun. And it went down very well at the conference. And the message that went out further out was, the Ulster Unionist is not the Ulster Unionist Party is not the Ulster Unionist Party of the likes of James Craig or the other people who came after him. That there's a bit more openness, a bit more liberalism there, and that's what peace allows, that people can explore their identities and be open to stuff instead of going, well, if they call themselves Irish and I don't like that and they're attacking me, I'm definitely not Irish. And the same with probably people who might say, well, that was the British Army and I don't like them because they shot dead people in Derry and Belfast, so therefore I want nothing to do with Britain. But people can now, with peace generally, be a bit more open to go, actually, my identity is a bit more than just what I used to think it was or what my parents' identity was.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a little story. I participated once in talks with unionists in the Glencree Peace and Reconciliation Centre. And there was people there from, officially you might call them what do they call themselves? The Ulster Political Research Group.
UPRG, yeah.
Yeah, which is basically a nice political front for the UDA.
For grants.
And the fellas from the UDA were saying when they first went down in the mid-1990s, they were very suspicious. They went along, but they just went along kind of as a box-ticking exercise. They weren't really kind of open to the whole idea. And they had to stay overnight. And they went into a room with a big slab of beer cans, and they barricaded themselves into this room. And they started drinking. They didn't care about what else was going on. They just wanted to. They were officially there, but they weren't participating in it, and they were just having a few drinks. So that's how the UDA first started in Glencree. But then, and one of them, the fellow who told me, I'm not going to name his name, but people might know who it is. He was saying, "Oh, I'm just British." But then, after 1998, after the early 2000s, he saw, actually, I have an Irish identity. Well, and he does have an Irish family name. So, people definitely have a mix of identities.
Completely, yeah.
And that's Irish history, and it's always like my name O Coistín. It's my dad's from Waterford, and as far as we can tell, we're Vikings. We're Norwegian Vikings that landed on the south coast of Ireland, and obviously somebody found an Irish woman, and we're still descendants from them.
Yeah.
Like look at Leo Varadkar. His dad is English. His dad is Indian. His mother's from Waterford, where my dad is from. Patrick Pearse, half English, half Irish.
Yeah.
James Connolly, born in Scotland but of Irish parents. Eamon de Valera, he was he Cuban dad or Spanish dad? Born in the USA.
Yeah.
He was an Irishman. Look at David Norris, Senator David Norris. His dad was from England. His mother's from County Laois. He was born in the Congo in Africa, but he's an Irishman who speaks kind of a posh English accent.
Yeah.
Erskine Childers, the guy who was killed in November 1922 in the Civil War, he was a quintessential Englishman. And by the end of his life, the last few years of his life, he was an out-and-out Irish Republican, and he died a staff captain in the Irish Republican Army, and he was shot dead for being a staff captain in the Irish Republican Army. But he was completely upper crust English for most of his life.
Oh, yes.
So Irish identity is very open, and I just don't like ever people saying, "Oh, well, there's this and there's that, and you can't change them."
Well, if you go, I mean, if you think that any of us are, there's a bit of it going around at the minute, a bit racially pure. You're fucking half of it. It just doesn't exist. Not a real thing. I've never done my DNA test. I pretty much know where a lot of it will come from. Some of it will come from Scotland. Some of it will come from Mayo. Some of it will come from Cork. Some of it will come from here. And I don't know where the rest of it's going to come from. But if there's some English in there, I wouldn't be one bit surprised.
I'm the same. I'm a southeasterner, really. My dad's from Waterford, my mother's from Carlow, my dad's mother was from Kilkenny, so all the southeast of Ireland. And it was mostly Gaelic, Irish, Viking, and Norman ancestry.
Yeah.
And then there's one particular name, Lucas, and I think it's a great grandmother of mine from Carlow. But Lucas, as far as I can tell, is an English surname. So maybe there's a Cromwellian in my background, you know what I mean? And somebody married somebody in Carlow, and that's how I'm one of their descendants. But listen, I don't care. I'm Irish. I was born in the National Maternity Hospital in Dublin.
Absolutely.
I've lived in Ireland for most of my life. I don't care who my ancestors were a few hundred years ago. I know where I'm from, and it's called Ireland.
Yeah, exactly. But here, so just on to bring it up to sort of up the the modern era. What is your opinion then on things on the people's on these forums that are starting, like the Ireland's Future and these events to try and
I went to the Ireland's Forum at the Ireland's Future rally in the, I still call it the Odyssey. It's the SSE Arena, isn't it?
I was at it.
Yeah, so I was there, and I just went up to Belfast for the day. I had a great time, and I was really happy to be in Belfast that day. It was really just not just because of the rally, but also there was a great atmosphere in Belfast that doesn't exist in Dublin and other parts of Ireland. And I think they're all good. But the thing that I go back to, Andy, is this: everybody's saying we're going to have a border poll, and these are the trends, and we said, but actually, do you know what? You could have had 50,000 people at that rally. I think it was about 5,000 people.
Yeah.
You could have had 50,000 or 500,000 Irish people at that rally. None of them could do anything, because we've all said we agree that one person in the UK government is allowed to decide the future for the rest of us here in Ireland.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. It's like Oliver Twist. Oh, please, sir, can I just have one little referendum, sir? Please. Okay, and that's one thing, and that's one problem. Okay, let's talk about a second problem. How many times can you have a referendum on the same question?
Once.
Twice.
Is that
like, we had this situation already in the Republic where 2001, 2002, there was the Nice referendum. It failed the first time.
Sorry,
the government said,
can I just ask?
Yeah.
Why twice? Is that a rule?
No, I'll tell you why. No,
Right.
it's kind of politics and political reality. So let's say, I'll give you the two examples. There was the Nice Treaty referendum,
Yeah.
and then the Lisbon Treaty
Lisbon
referendum.
Treaty, yeah.
And they failed twice. They failed each the first time. And the Irish government said, oh, listen, sorry, we didn't really discuss that properly. We weren't properly organised. Oh, okay, listen, we'll just do it again. Like, it was a bit awkward the first time, but look, we're better prepared now. Everybody, we'll do this properly now. Okay.
Yeah.
And the same. But if those referenda had failed a second time, do you really think the Irish government could go, listen, you didn't get the message. We're going to do this one more time. Everybody now, get out to vote. You know, you can't do that, because let's say if there is a border referendum, right, and it fails, and it's pretty close, let's say 47 to 53% or something like that. And then we go, oh, okay, listen, sure, look, it was just the first time, people weren't ready. Listen, we'll do it again in 10, 15 years' time. And we'll ask the exact same question. Do you agree that Northern Ireland can leave the UK and join with the rest of Ireland to form a new Irish state? Yes or no? And the same answer is given. Do you really think the UK government and the Irish government can actually go, you know, we'll do this a third time, and let's see if you change your mind in the meantime? And the unionists, we have to be fair here, the unionists can go, listen, you've had this twice, and you've asked the same question twice, and you've got the same result.
Yeah.
So are we finished now?
Yep.
Are we finished now? Because, like, do you really want to try this a third time and get the same answer again? And that is a danger. And, like, there's in Quebec, Leo Varadkar mentioned this, and other people mentioned this. Quebec has tried to have, I think David Trimble mentioned it as well, Quebec has had 2 referenda in Canada to try and make Quebec an independent state.
Yeah.
And they failed. And Scotland has tried it, and I don't think the Scots would be able to do it more than one more time. Because if the Scots go back a third time and say, listen, the first time in 2014, it was kind of close, but we just weren't ready yet. We'll do it again, and then it fails, and then go back 10 years later and go, listen, one more time, lads, please, just give it a bit more time now, and we'll all do it.
You can see how that's not going to happen. It's not going to work that
so,
well. Yeah.
And people have mentioned this. I think it was mentioned at the rally in June in the SSE arena that you can't have that same question again and again and get the same answer. And then the unionists will go, listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, so tell me this. Look, we're coming to I'm mindful that of my time. Just real quick, let's say at Fantasyland we're going to get our border poll, right?
Yeah.
What do you think needs to happen across the island of Ireland for a yes vote? All right, let me put it. I'm going to frame it a little bit differently. What do you think would tip the balance in the favor of a Tá yes to unite from the north? Because the north, say what are we sitting, like 50-50 at the minute, something like that, according to 45, 55.
Allegedly,
Yeah. So let's
it's
say,
not certain.
I know.
Yeah,
So let's say the North voted
yeah.
55 yes. What would need to be in place for that to happen?
Okay, I would think we, the people of Ireland, everywhere in the four provinces, need to start thinking about this seriously. Not just go, oh, it'd be great to have Irish unity, great, Irish freedom, and no, like explain what we need the details.
Yeah.
What exactly are we talking about? We would like to see an all Ireland republic, and I'll give you my ideas, and some of them are way more advanced than what a lot of other people are doing. But like, we have to be honest with this. If nationalists will win a vote for Irish unification, basically we're ending the nationality of about 1 million people, give or take 1 million people in the northeast of Ireland.
Yeah.
And if I was in that situation, if somebody came along here in this part of Ireland, or any part of Ireland actually, and said, we're going to have a vote, but the result will be your nationality is going to be gone, I would really want something big in return for taking my nationality off me. So we have to be extremely generous to the unionists. Not just, we'll give them a few little nods and little thumbs up for this and that. No, I think we should just have a blank sheet and start with, what will we call this country? Do you want to call it Ireland if you don't like the name Irish or Ireland? Do you want to call it Hibernia? Do you want to call it Fola? That was an old name for Ireland. Let's start with the very simple stuff. What suits this to call ourselves? If you don't like the idea of being Irish, let's call ourselves something else. Not West Britain, but let's start with like simple things like that, and then like talk about like what kind of local government would you want, what kind of national government do you want, what symbols do you want, where do you want your capital. And listen, by the way, I've no problem at all with Belfast being the capital of Ireland, and I actually think it would be a very worthwhile prize for a number of reasons. Number one, it'd be extremely difficult for unions to go no to Belfast rule, and kind of it's been awkward, but I don't want this city where I'm living to be the capital. And it's very easy to say no to Dublin rule, but when the Irish Parliament, the Dáil, is going to be sitting in Stormont, it's kind of it deflates that argument pretty quickly. So
you're basically giving them a seat of power, really. You're saying you're not going to do this. You basically get fuck all out of Westminster anyway, but we're going to give you more here.
Yeah, so I would say, listen, we can talk about Irish unity in percentages, and 50% of any situation, whether it's in the UK or an all-Ireland republic, it's strong local government.
Yeah.
In the village where I live here in Dublin, it's Newcastle County Dublin, not Newcastle County Down. There was a woman, she's telling me, she works for Dublin City Council, and I was shocked when she told me this. She said, Ireland has weaker local government than Moldova, which is the poorest country in Europe. So the first thing we actually need to do, besides coming up with a new name for the country perhaps, is absolutely jam-pack the local government with as much power as possible. So let's say if you're living in Bangor, and Bangor is the most British town in Ireland, right? 99% British unionist, and that's fine. It's lovely, it's a great town. You talk to the people in Bangor and listen, what powers would you like in this area here? So you never have to be worried about people from Tipperary or Tyrone or Dublin outvoting you and changing things the way you don't want them to be changed. So we can give you the power for like education, health, transport, tourism, the environment, local heritage, social services, maybe a little bit of local taxation, and maybe local policing, and then like licensing of a local radio station and stuff. So therefore, most of the decisions that affect your life in day-to-day stuff are going to be made by councillors who you elect here. So 50% of this is going to be about really transforming the local government in Ireland, like not just kind of a county council, but much further down, like a local city council, like Bangor City Council or Carrickfergus City Council, and like give it loads of power. So therefore, the people don't have to be worried about people from Tyrone or Tipperary or Limerick outvoting them, because they'll have nothing to do with it.
I love that idea. I love that idea.
Okay,
go ahead.
The second, another 10% is so 50% strong local government, because we've ridiculously crap local government in Ireland. The next one is secularization law. So if anybody says, "Oh, I'll be discriminated against," we're like, "No, you won't. We don't care about your religion or lack of religion. The state is going to be secular. We won't be asking in the census what your religion is. It's irrelevant. You're fine." The next one is equality laws. So you've got 50% local government, 60% is secularization, 70% then would be strong equality laws. So people shouldn't be discriminated against. The stuff that happened in the past, it's going to stay in the past. It'll never come back into the present or the future. We'll just be treated equally as we should. The next one is being in the EU. And a lot of people already who would be traditionally unionists are going, actually, do you know what? Ireland is in the EU. I'm living on the island of Ireland. This looks a much better future than living in a piss poor Britain, because the chances and the opportunities are not so good. So then you're up to about 80%. Then what part of Britain do the unionists like?
Scotland.
Yes. If you want a British connection and you want to give the union something, you have to absolutely look to Scotland. The real Irish-British connection is not Ireland-England. It's not east-west. It's south-west-northeast. It's Ireland-Scotland.
Yeah.
The unionists, most of them, don't give a rat's ass about England. And England doesn't even give a rat's ass about them. So, everybody's happy then. So the thing we should be talking about is, listen, you can, if you're living in Carrickfergus or, Whitehead or the north of Antrim or in Bangor, you can see Scotland there on the horizon. It's just over there.
Yeah.
That's the part of Britain that you're interested in. So let's have the connections with Scotland.
Absolutely.
Forget about England. We don't need England. So therefore, you're up to about 90%. And then the last 10% is about just having kind of a vision of how people can live together, and kind of having respect, and kind of just a better, the word about reconciliation, but I'm not really talking about reconciliation. It's about kind of embracing people together, cherishing all the people together. So therefore, you can actually divide down what Irish unity would look like, but definitely 50% of this is going to have super powered local government. So if you're in Dromore in County Down, if you're in Bangor, if you're in Carrickfergus, and you're in Derry and in Strabane, you would have strong local governments. By the way, you should have the same in Limerick and in Westport and in Wexford, all over Ireland, because the local government in Ireland is dreadful. It's really weak. It's, as I said, it's weaker than the local government in Moldova, the poorest country in Europe. We need to fix this.
Yeah.
So this is what I would hope, that if we're going to be talking about a new Ireland, yes, we should also be talking about a new local government in Ireland, because that will fix so many problems. If you're from Strabane, which is one of the poorest parts of what's officially the UK, part of that is because the local government in Strabane has no powers to do anything.
It's the same here.
Imagine if the people in Derry or the people in Strabane had a strong local government that could suddenly make a lot more stuff happen locally. I'd imagine Strabane would be in much better shape.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Local government is a bit of an issue with me at the minute. That's why it rung my bell, because there's stuff happening around here where I live that I'm involved in.
Can I just say, sorry, a few more things. Symbolic thing. We've got two football organisations in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
The IFA and the FAI. They both wear green, now this is a controversial one. I would say FAI should be told, pack your bags, move to Belfast, make Belfast the home of Irish soccer. The IFA was there first. They get the rights to it. And then the unionists cannot say, oh, we got nothing from Irish unity. And you're like, yes, you do actually. You had the IFA.
Yeah.
Not entirely, but you know what I mean.
That's interesting.
The IFA,
good,
the IFA should take over Irish soccer for the whole of Ireland and make Belfast the home of Irish soccer. Dublin can be the home of rugby and Gaelic games, but we should have home games for Ireland in Belfast, run by the Irish Football Association.
Cool, I like it. I really do.
Yeah,
I really like
it. There's nothing controversial about that, because who was there first? Where did the IFA come from?
And
it was there first.
Soccer means a lot to the unionist. It's a big fucking we have a GA and all the rest of it, and I know they have rugby. To be fair, but soccer for the normal working class, for the 5/8, big fucking deal.
So if you were to say, listen, you're going to have strong local government, you're going to have a new capital in Belfast. The IFA is going to run all of Irish soccer, and the international games for Ireland will be held in the home ground in Belfast. If you're a union and you're going to be in the EU, you're going to be secular, you're going to be on well, there's strong connections with Scotland. Okay, I would have preferred to be in the UK, but I'm, this isn't so bad,
I hear you. I think it's really good, man.
And people might say, okay, there's some extreme unions, you'll never change them. And some of them are saying, I'll leave the next day if this ever happens. okay, off you go. We can't do anything to help you or to make you happy.
They won't.
But there's a lot of people, they're not going to go anywhere because
No.
where are they from? They're from Ireland. They've
Yeah.
grown up here. Their families
Yeah.
here. Their parents are here.
Yeah.
They don't have the resources to move to Britain
No.
or somewhere else. So why should that even happen? So we need to embrace them and to say, listen, we all live in this space. We need to share the space. We can all get along well. And we know that there's some things that could make your existence in Ireland much better, such as having your own strong local government. And therefore, you've nothing to worry about from people from Kerry or Tyrone or from Westport or from Wicklow outvoting you, because they're not going to be voting in your area.
Brilliant. I fucking love it. Right, we're going to end this. Would you come back on? We'll talk about some other stuff sometime.
Definitely, yeah.
Would you?
No, I'd love to talk about stuff like the Irish language, because that's always a topical one.
Would you be able to talk to me a little bit in the coming weeks? The Irish language, absolutely passion. Love to do that. About the upcoming election down south.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to end this because this thing is winking at me here, telling me to stop. Seanán O Coistín, was that right?
You got it, yeah.
Brilliant.
I'm the only one with that name.
That's
so
brilliant.
That's
fantastic. That's fantastic. Seanán O Coistín, I love it. Thank you so much. I loved that conversation. That was brilliant. And as I said, hopefully I'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks. So thanks so much.